Hey everyone, how we doing? People pouring in. Hello, everyone. So we're gonna give it a few minutes just to let people trickle in. We'll give it a minute or two. And then we're gonna get started with our first Rokoko talk, which we're very excited about. Oh man, this is awesome. Hello, hello. Seeing a lot of, people from all over the place. This is so cool. Okay. Okay, so we'll kind of just get started. So welcome everyone. Welcome to this Rokoko talk. So this is a series of webinars that we're going to start doing where basically we're going to be speaking to some of our power users and amazing people who are using Rokoko motion capture out there. And today, as you can see on my screen here, we are going to be speaking to ShutterAuthority, or Rokoko, who is the mind and the genius behind the YouTube channel with over 3.5 million subscribers. As you can see right here, he makes incredible, awesome stuff. He's been creating short films since he was a kid. And we're especially excited to speak with Rokoko because he's done all of this essentially as like a one-man band. So he is the exact kind of person that, uses Rokoko motion capture in the best possible way by himself, makes it all work by himself, does the modeling. We were just talking about how he did the modeling for Godzilla, and, he does the editing and everything. So in the last few years, he's folded motion capture into his workflow with the SmartSuit Pro, and which has only opened up his workflows more. So hello, Rokoko.
Hey.
Nice to see you, and thank you so much for doing this with us. So I'm gonna stop the share, but after this webinar, I encourage you to go check out Rokoko's YouTube channel, ShutterAuthority, because you'll find some banana stuff on there. I'm gonna stop this guy. You get a full picture of us. Yeah. So I'll go over kind of the just the outline of what we're going to be doing in this. So we are going to be having some prepared, you all submitted questions when you signed up. So we have a bunch of those questions. We're going to spend 30 minutes going through some of those, and then we'll open it up to a live Q&A. Use the Q&A button that's at the bottom of your Zoom console and submit your question. And we have panelists who are going through everything. And thank you to our Rokoko team that's behind the scenes typing away right now. And then at the end, we will just kind of see if there's any more questions, and so it should be great. Again, Rokoko, thank you for doing this. We're super excited. Yeah,
super excited too.
Maybe you could just start by telling us who you are. What is ShutterAuthority? Like, what do you do?
Yeah, I'm Raghav, and I've been making videos on YouTube for over almost 15 years now. And I make VFX videos with a lot of live action footage. And the goal is always to experiment different VFX techniques and put them all together into cool videos with interesting topics that have a large interest to the audience. So that's kind of the summary of what I do.
So is the channel, would you say that you're like a filmmaker? Are you a VFX? You kind of fold everything into what you do a little bit.
Yeah, I would say I would consider myself a filmmaker, but all my videos have VFX because that is something I love doing and something that I'm fairly good at also. So I want to be able to and I enjoy it. So I want to put things that I have fun doing and people like to watch. So it's a combination of all of that.
Yeah. So this is a question from someone who signed up. But did you go to film school, or did you teach yourself? You use mostly a Blender, right? Maybe you can talk about what programs you use.
Yeah. To answer your first question, no, I did not go to film school. So it's been mostly from YouTube and other platforms on the internet. And yeah, I mean, it's a lot easier now than 15 years ago because there's a lot more stuff and a lot of good stuff for free. So it's a lot easier and more fun to be getting into this stuff right now, because back then, like, I would have really bad issues with a certain problem on Blender, and then I would just keep making the same mistakes for so many years, and then I learned about it 8 years after I started using it. So yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, what programs I use? I use After Effects a lot. For 3D, I've been using Blender. I've also started using Substance Painter, a little bit of 3ds Max, especially for Tyflow, and Cat sometimes. Yeah. And yeah, DaVinci Resolve for editing.
Yeah. I mean, it's amazing that, I mean, yeah, as you said, Blender is now just such a powerhouse in terms of what you can do, right? All the software you can get for free. And so anyone can, can get started by themselves, essentially.
Right.
Yeah. Could you describe your workflow? I mean, we'll get more into your workflow, but like in a couple sentences or like in a paragraph, let's say you have a new video idea. What does that look like, kind of?
Yeah, the first thing is obviously to come up with an interesting idea that.
Right. That's hard enough.
Yeah. So it's a little bit of looking on what's out there and what people are actually interested in at that point in time. And then also kind of seeing on Google Trends what stuff is actually trending. And because when I'm going to put a month or a month and a half making a video, I wanted to have the largest reach that I can possibly get with it. So yeah, that's one thing. And I also have a large list of ideas that I've been writing down whenever they come to me. And so it's sort of a combination of stuff that I bump into and all that.
So you just have a repository you can open up at one point if you're what should I do next?
Yeah. Just that's smart. A long list of stuff. And yeah, then I write the story and make a storyboard. And then sometimes I also make what I would call a crap-o-matic, which was described by Mike Diva, which is basically like a previs without any VFX or anything, with just shot on a camera. And so I kind of get the sense of the framing and the movement and all that. And that really helps me understand how long the video is going to be and how the pacing works, basically.
Yeah.
And if it works at all sometimes. So even for our Godzilla videos, we do that. Like me playing Godzilla and a friend of mine playing Kong and so on.
It's amazing how much time that saves you on the back end, right?
Right.
Yeah. I still, you want to jump in and just get, started on stuff, but it saves, it's so helpful to have that planned out right beforehand. When did you start, or how does your Rokoko motion capture stuff, like how did that play in? Were you doing keyframe animation before that?
Right. And no, I also played with a little bit of motion capture with the Kinect sensor.
Right.
And that was always so frustrating. And very often I would feel like I'm spending more time with all of that than if I actually did it manually with keyframes. So
you're fixing it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's just more fixing than actually doing it. So it's kind of frustrating as you work on it. So yeah, the first time I used Rokoko, like, okay, I think that's it. There's like all my problems are gone.
Right.
And yeah, I still feel so. Like there's no way I would be able to make a 3.5-minute action film with like 45 VFX shots with so much character animation in like less than 2 weeks, which is a pretty huge deal.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to iterate. And I guess, I mean, for me, it's nice to just be able to throw something on quickly, right? And like do it right then, not have to have a whole plan for getting your animation, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so here's another question that came in from a submitted question. But when you were learning Blender, what was or I guess just learning VFX, what was like the thing you struggled with the most? Or is there something that like in your head you're like, oh, I remember that graph editor or whatever it is?
Yeah, for the longest time, I had trouble lighting things really well,
Hmm,
especially in for a live action thing. To make sure
right,
the light is coming from the right direction, the shadow has the right amount of diffusion, or it's even the intensity of the shadow or things like that. So figuring out all of these little things was a little bit annoying, and also materials was another thing that I had trouble with, because back then you didn't have all of this PBR workflow, which was so it
right.
was all just a bunch of janky trial and error things, and you kind of hope that it doesn't look too bad. And also it was really slow, so to be able to do something and then have feedback of what you've done can take
Yeah.
a while. So yeah, that's something I had a lot of trouble with until just a few years ago.
That's tough with motivation too, I find. If something is really hard, then you're like slogging away at it, and then by the time you get close, you're like, oh, I don't even forget this. I'm done.
Yeah.
um,
And then if the shot has been rendered and there's going to be problems with it, but you're not going to spend the time to do it again if you already
right,
spend a long time.
right. That was
So
16 hours. I think I'm just gonna I'm done. This
that's
one.
it.
Let's move on. I'm going to Pac-Man. He's got hard reflective surface. That's easier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so we should keep moving, but just quickly. So what were your, we mentioned and you sent me some of your stop motion films from when you were a kid. I mean, a lot of your stuff is Pac-Man and like kind of these people that Godzilla and SCP stuff and Siren Head. What was like the big influences in the beginning? Did you know you wanted to be like, was it VFX focused? Was it film? Was it like Star Wars?
Right.
Yeah, all of that.
No, the VFX wasn't the initial focus.
Yeah,
I was just trying to make a film with that character, and the only way to do that was with VFX or stop motion. Or so yeah, it was more about the result than the process. But I mean, once I started getting into it, I started enjoying the process itself. So
yeah,
I was sort of looking for opportunities to, like, let's say I learned a certain type of effect. I wanted to use it in a film. So I would think of all the different effects that I have in my recently learned list that I would like to put into a story. And so it sort of again combines with what I need to tell a story and what I recently learned that I want to put into the test.
yeah. What you just saw Andrew Kramer do a tutorial for, and you're like, shockwaves. I'm gonna do
Yeah,
something with shockwaves now.
yeah,
That's what I'm doing.
true. I've done that all the time.
Yeah, totally. I think we all do. Okay, well, let's move on to VFX, like more your workflow, and because we have a ton of questions about your process. So you kind of mentioned, we had a question from Dorothy about your process, but you kind of talked about how you start with writing and then you'll do the crapomatic and then you'll take it kind of from there. From Haryana from Azerbaijan. So why Blender? Have you ever thought about switching? I mean, you said 3DS a little bit,
Yeah,
but
Blender because not only because it's free, because that's
yeah,
kind of why most people go to it. But today, I think it's a lot easier to use than 3ds Max. In 3ds Max, if you want to have there's so much setup involved. Like you have to have a third-party renderer because Arnold isn't as fast as what you would get up straight out of Cycles.
yeah,
So with all of that setup and there are 1,000 settings and all that, Blender has fewer switches, in my opinion, compared to some of these other programs. But it almost gives you 90% of what you need. And so there's a lot less setup. And the latest versions, especially after 2.8, has been so good that it's a lot faster to work inside of Blender. It can almost do anything that you would do with other programs. So
yeah.
yeah, it's a really good choice at this point.
I mean, it can do simulations. It can do I mean, it's like, honestly, I think there was a time when people were like, maybe Blender users who are like, I'm gonna support Blender because it's open source and it's free, and so that's great. Now it's like, it's just straight up, it is one of the best programs that if you were starting out, it's like the
Yeah.
program to learn. Don't learn Maya. I mean, maybe, but like, it's amazing the progress. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's getting better. I think
Yeah.
faster than most other programs are getting better.
That's
I
a really
feel
good
like
point.
it. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the love is there too for the community. So that does play into that, I think.
Yeah. And heaps of tutorials. So that's important too.
Yeah. Yeah. Tons of tutorials, tons of content. Do you have a, so coming back to the Rokoko mocap with Blender, maybe you could walk through, like, how do you get the best result, like workflow? Are there things that you do? Are you acting for the mocap? Like, that's one thing that I do, is that, you're kind of consciously working within the sandbox of what you can do. Is it, maybe you could talk about how you approach doing mocap and acting and all that?
Yeah. Firstly, I sort of do it without the mocap suit and see what it looks like on a regular camera or a mirror
Oh, interesting.
or with
Cool.
a friend. Because firstly, it's important for us to understand what we want to do.
Yeah.
And once I put on the suit, I don't want to spend too much time trying to figure out what I want to do. I want to have already all of that sorted out before I put the suit on, because it's quite hot where I live, and yeah, you don't want to be in the suit for too long.
That's a good point.
And yeah, also you're running out of battery, and who knows
Right.
what else could happen during that. So you want to get it done as quickly as possible. So I also make a list of all the stuff that I want to record. Like if there are 25 different movements that I want to record. So I have all of that planned, and I have a friend of mine sort of guide me as to what to do next. And I try to do as much as possible in one single take, so that I don't have to export each file separately and then import all that. Oops, sorry.
No worries.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm not really a fan of importing and exporting and all that. So I try to bring all of that in as few takes as possible, because it's also easier to clean up if it's a single take, because it's fewer buttons to click on each shot.
Yeah. So will you do multiple scenes in one take? Like, if you have Godzilla, he's going to smash a building, but then he's also going to walk over. Will you do it all in one go? You'll smash and walk in one take.
Sort of, yeah, sort of.
Okay.
What I actually did for the last Godzilla versus Kong video was I shot all of the Godzilla stuff in the first take, and then I did Kong, but they had to match each other. So I had to retime certain movements, but the movements are all captured in sequence.
Right. And that's, I guess, where the acting out beforehand to get the timing in, really comes into play and is helpful. That's interesting that you do it all in one take, just because you can clean it faster. Yeah. And it's just like economies of clicks. You just want to click less. When do you use the cleanup filters? Do you use like Foot IK and like Drift Fix or any of those?
Yeah, every single time. They're super useful, and for the most part, they're really good. And of course, if you're really seeing some slipping or all of that, you can go into the Foot IK and sort of tweak the left and right foot placements, and it solves everything for the most part.
And oh man, this is making me, I mean, we won't get into it, but we do have a new version of our software that we're working on right now, and we're integrating more editing into that. Like, so you'll be able to do the tweaking within Studio before it comes to Blender, which I'm very excited. Yeah, I'm very excited about. I think is going to be amazing. So that question was from no. Okay, so we have another question. Oh no, that question was from Papo from Chile. Thank you. So another question. I'm just going to check the time to make sure that we're still looking okay. Okay. We're going to keep moving so that when we'll come back to some of these if we have time at the end, but we're just going to kind of move to YouTube. So this is a whole thing. I mean, you are a VFX artist and a filmmaker, but running a YouTube channel and thinking about subscribers and views, that is a whole job as well. Maybe how did your YouTubing like career, because that's what it is, like start at this point? Because I imagine, usually it starts kind of small and then he picks up steam and then there's like a huge, rush of subscribers. How did that happen? Yeah.
Yeah, for the most part, I didn't have an audience for the first 8 years or so. I mean,
Right.
I had less than, I think, 1,000 subscribers for a long time.
Yeah.
And but I just kept making videos because at that point I didn't really think about the numbers and all of that. Um, and I'm sort of glad that I did that, because if I had been looking for it, I would have probably given up. And yeah, the fact that I
Yeah.
stayed and even got past that was, it allowed me to learn a lot more, and I didn't have as many distractions as one would have when they're getting a lot of comments and all that. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, I didn't even think about that. Yeah, just the sheer number of comments that you must get and have to react to, kind of.
yeah,
That's such a good I don't know, it's not an analogy, but example of just, people say, I think you have to do it for the love of the art and all that, and that's what you did. And yeah, if you're in it only for those views, I imagine that's hard, because you can't control that really, yeah.
yeah, you can't. And yeah, it can get very stressful when you're trying to do something like animation on YouTube, which isn't typical content for YouTube, because
Right. It's not shock,
currently,
and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and they're prioritizing watch time over views, and
Yeah.
we are sort of on the exact opposite side of the scene, as in it takes too long to make something little versus what a vlogger would do. Like, it takes little time to make a lot of stuff.
That's really interesting. Yeah, absolutely. That's so true. So this is from a music YouTuber, but do you use like analytics, or so you have that list of ideas and you kind of do so you check the zeitgeist, but you check kind of what's happening, and then, I mean, at this point, I assume, because what you're very practiced, and Blender is quick and rendering is quicker, you can
Yeah.
react quicker. So yeah, do you like actively though look at the analytics and you make changes or anything like that? Do you take that into account?
I do, yes.
Yeah.
Especially when I'm thinking of video ideas. You'll have to
Yeah.
see if a certain thing is not performing well, and it doesn't make sense to spend the next 2 months working on it only to be surprised at the end of it. So it's good to
Yeah.
sort of see what is working, and of course you have to experiment and try out new things. Otherwise, you're going to sort of just keep doing the same thing, and that can also get very boring to the creator and as well as the audience.
Yeah. Is there a certain metric on YouTube that you pay that you're like, ooh, I have a lot of upvote or thumbs up, or I have a lot of views, or my engagement is high? Is there one that you kind of are like, ooh, this video is doing good because I have a ton of comments or something?
Yeah, I think that metric would be click-through rate,
Click through.
CTR. Yeah,
Okay.
so that is, it indicates how many people who saw the thumbnail and the title actually watched the video. So, and that is a very key metric for going viral in any capacity. Yeah.
Interesting. So is that from the YouTube thumbnail when they put their mouse over it and then they click in to watch the video? Is that what that refers to?
Not necessarily, just an impression of the thumbnail and the title itself, I think,
Okay.
would be an input parameter into the click-through rate metric.
Right. Okay. Interesting. Yeah, this is all, I'm happy we're talking about this, because I know people are interested, not just in the VFX, but all, just you have a massive channel. And I think people are interested in that too. So again, we're going to move to live questions in a second, but we have more. Here's a fun question. Do you ever make content based on dreams? I don't know who this is from, but this is a submitted question. Are you
Yeah,
a dreamer?
maybe. Yeah, I mean, I do dream.
Yeah.
And yeah, there have been certain things that I might take from a dream, like
Baby versus
ah,
Godzilla.
maybe not that
Yeah, yeah.
video, but yeah, maybe like a certain location. There was this one place that I saw in a dream, like it was a massive tree with a lot of have you seen a banyan tree?
Yeah. I've
Yeah,
seen
yeah,
I've
it's
seen
the one
photos.
with
Yeah.
those hanging roots.
And yeah, and the
And
gnarled. Yeah.
yeah, and after a while I forgot what the dream was about, but that sort of the visual sort of stayed in my head. And later I saw a tree somewhere around here, and then I decided to shoot a video. But I mean, so it's kind of more with the visuals that I see in my dream than like a concept itself.
Yeah. That's interesting. So okay. Siren Head. This is a so massive viral video, 100+ million views.
Yeah.
And also, I guess, and this was I skipped over this, but a lot of your videos are horror. I mean, not all of them, but a bunch of them are. Siren Head. There's, I mean, even the Pac-Man escaping. I don't know if it's horror because it's fun. It's not scary. Like Siren Head is terrifying. But is there why do you is that something special about Siren Head? Is there something about horror you think that are you drawn to horror? Do you think? Or yeah, I don't know. Maybe you could talk about that.
I wasn't actually for the longest time. So Ironhead was the first horror short film that I made,
Okay.
and yeah, it's just that I saw I think a picture of Siren Head somewhere, and like, oh my god, that's like it's so creepy.
Yeah.
And yeah, I wanted to make a 3D model of that. I made it, and then after I just did one little test with the Rokoko suit, and then I put that out on Instagram, and people seem to be enjoying it. Then I thought I could actually make a short film with it, and yeah, it was also I really like the short films by David F. Sandberg, the director of Shazam, and
Right.
yeah, he sort of I mean that's how I sort of got into horror. Otherwise, I've never been into it myself, and yeah, it was just an experiment, and seemed like a lot of people enjoyed it, and I enjoyed making it, so we made a couple of more.
Yeah. And I think people are interested. You have that SCP video too, which I think it's just kind
Mm.
of this genre of new horror, kind of interesting new horror that a lot of people find interesting. I mean, and it's just interesting to watch.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
and
and then go
yeah.
for it, please. No.
If you go into any commentary video about any of these characters, like a lot of people are talking about, hey, I wish someone made a film about this and so on. Well,
Totally.
I could make a 3 or 4 minute video about it, which could kind of look like a film. Probably will only be half the quality, but at least I can do it in the next 2 weeks or so. So why
Right.
not? Let's give it a shot.
Yeah. That's that. Yeah. That. I mean, there's so much love for some of these characters and things I think out there,
Yeah.
especially the
Yeah.
SCP. I didn't know what SCP was, and then I went, for like into a
Mm-mm.
massive rabbit hole of that
Yeah.
universe, and
It's
very
deep.
passionate. I mean, it's amazing. It's storytelling. It's like crowdsourced storytelling. It's incredible. Okay, so one last question before we get to the live Q&A, which I see there's questions coming in, and we can jump back if we have more time. But so you've done some collaborations with like Jason Derulo, I think is the big one that comes to mind. How did that happen? And yeah, what was that like? And what was how did that all come about? Was that just like an Instagram reach out kind of thing, or?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah, once I started posting more stuff on Instagram, which was actually, I think, it's just been about a year and a half or 2 years since I got on Instagram and actually started posting stuff. I started making friends in the VFX community, and one of the guys was working with Jason Derulo, and his name is Max Goodrich, and yeah, he reached out and asked if I would want to make something for him, and that was about when I also made a video with the dinosaur character that I had recently sculpted. So he was like.
Yeah.
Yeah, he really wants to make a video with dinosaurs, so would you want to collaborate on that? And we did that. And that was also about when one of my videos went viral and I started getting a lot of requests for collabs of this sort. And that's when I had the opportunity to do a little bit of work for Snoop Dogg's music video.
Oh,
Uh,
nice. Which one is that? I didn't know that one.
yeah, it's called I See Your Bullshit. It's on YouTube.
Nice. Awesome. That's where I'm gonna go right after this.
Yeah. Yeah, then I did a bunch more for other musicians and things like that. And I do things like these in between YouTube videos. So like I finish one
Okay.
and then I have a few days when I'm thinking of an idea and then I'm not doing any effects at that time. Sort of like that.
Okay. So I have two questions, and we're gonna get to everyone's live questions in a second, but I'm curious. So two things. One, I know a lot of people in our line of work do that sort of thing with Instagram, or they get commissions and stuff like that. Would you have like a piece of advice or a lesson you've learned in? I know that I've learned lessons about like like making sure that everyone's clear what's happening before. Like, is there anything you could say to keep in mind when people are trying to do work for people that they've met who maybe expect something that isn't realistic, or you know what I mean? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like you said, it's very important to understand what they're looking for and also explain what is actually possible, because there's always
Yeah.
this possibility that you spend a bunch of time and then it's completely different from what they had in mind.
Right.
And yeah, a lot of people want work done for free. So
Yeah.
unless there's somebody who you yourself were really excited to work with, regardless of whether there was going to be any payment involved, unless it's something like that, I would encourage people to not do too much work for free.
Exposure. Working
Yeah,
for exposure.
yeah,
Yeah.
because it very rarely helps at all, even if the person is very popular, because not many will really go into the bio or the description and find you and look you up, and it's not gonna happen. So yeah,
Yeah.
if they're asking you to spend a bunch of time, it's gonna cost something.
And that's the thing too, is it takes so much time to do this stuff, and it's always a big thing, and it's always bigger. Every project is bigger than you think it's going to be, and so I like that advice, just to not do it unless you really are excited about it, even though it's very tempting, I think, for people to do things for exposure, because but it's so much headache and like pain that ends up coming back on you, I think, when you do sometimes when you do that stuff.
True.
Okay, and then my other question about the dinosaur is just, I know that you did the mocap using Rokoko, right? Using
Right.
the smart suit.
Mhm. Yeah.
That dinosaur looks like a dinosaur. It looks like Jurassic. Like, how did you? I mean, I've seen the behind the scenes footage where you put your hands up,
Yeah.
but did you like? Were there any tricks to, I guess, working with those because you do the actually Godzilla to a lot of creatures using
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
Rokoko suit. Is there a trick to doing that, like a non-bipedal humanoid
And no,
creature?
they are bipedal.
Or they
I
are
mean,
they are bipedal, but they're
I
not
wouldn't do
humanoid,
it.
right?
Yeah, yeah. The trickiest part would be the ankle region, because
Right.
if you look at how it looks, it's not the same. Their ankle is a lot higher than our ankle, and our foot actually stays like this, and they have it a little bit, it
Right.
goes this way. So yeah, adjusting for that is a tricky thing, and it's something I wish there's a better solution for in Blender. For certain things, I've used 3ds Max for this sort of stuff, and
IK reversal weird
yeah,
system something.
yeah.
Yeah.
They have a solution called CAT, which is Character
Yeah.
Animation Toolkit. And with that, you can have adjustment layers which work a little bit better than in Blender currently. The harder part is actually getting the tail to work well, because
Interesting. Yeah.
otherwise you're just going to have this stiff thing that moves with the pelvis.
With the hip.
So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So that is something which sort of you kind of eyeball it. There are other ways to do it with like springs and things like that, but
Right.
it's not always the easiest. Even I am still experimenting and trying to see the best way to do that.
Yeah, I think that's always, I mean, and I think it's people I always forget that, like, at any level. There's the Marvel animators, they everyone's experimenting. It's always like, what's going to work for this project? I'm going to try something new. You think that kind of there's a way to do everything properly, and there's not really, right? It's like you just figure out what's going to work and then you just brute force it
Yeah.
to working. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So now let's jump over. We have some, these questions that were submitted were awesome. Thank you everyone for writing in. Let's jump over. We have a bunch of open questions. So from Bartosz, have you ever used Maya or Motion Builder for animation? And if yes, how would you compare it to Blender? And if somebody wanted to transition from Autodesk, is there a particular approach, or maybe I don't know, if anyone to check out on YouTube or something?
Yeah, the answer to Maya or Motion Builder is no. I haven't used either of those. I've used 3ds Max though,
Yeah.
and in fact, that was what I initially started with, even before I started using Blender a lot. But yeah, I mean, I think Maya and Max are completely different, so I can't really comment on that. But Blender, I think, is a lot easier to get into because of the number of tutorials there is. And yeah, if that's something you want to do, it's very easy to give it a try.
I mean, I also think for someone, Bartosz, or someone trying to jump into Blender, like it's just, I think that, I've worked in Maya a lot, and in Maya, things like the undo button is like kind of broken. Like you can break a project by doing too many undos. Blender is kind of made a little bit more for the modern. I think Maya is folded into a lot of these existing workflows, which is why it's great. But Blender is more robust and user friendly, I would say, even in the layout and everything at this point. So yeah. We have do YouTube full time?
Yeah. In addition to all of the other VFX projects that I work on, yeah.
Yeah. And so what does that look like? Is that like do you have hours that you set for yourself, or is it
really
just classic VFX? I mean, you were saying you get to bed before midnight, which is a very good habit, I think, for anyone sitting alone with their computer, in their little room. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I sort of, depending on what I'm doing, if there's something I have to shoot and that has to be done in the afternoon, then I try to get some other stuff done in the morning. So it's kind of just juggling around and seeing what works. But since most things depend on only me, I'm more flexible with that.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. Healthy habits are good. Thinking ahead. So this is an interesting one. Where should we, Frankita, where should we post videos? Which is the best platform to earn revenue? So I maybe that's a reference to Twitch or something too. But yeah, I don't know is there any other platforms that someone who's trying to make a living from this that you've experimented with or anything like that? Pretty much YouTube is the name of the game.
YouTube, yeah.
Essentially.
I've heard TikTok is starting to monetize videos, but the ad
that's
rates,
interesting.
Yeah, but the ad rates are a lot lower than with YouTube. I would say something like 1/20th or 1/10th or something like that. So also, I think yeah, YouTube is a much better place for this sort of thing because there's already a community doing stuff like this. So there's already a bunch of people who are into this. So it's just a matter of trying to get enough exposure that some of those people start following you.
Yeah. I mean, and it's also nice that they have a lot of experience with people as making this their career at this point. So there is support, I feel like, and stuff too. There's a lot of content out there about YouTubing and how to handle revenue and how to handle all that. So quickly, have you ever played with Houdini from Davide? Sorry if I'm butchering everyone's names.
I haven't. That's something I've been wanting to, but I feel like I mean, I'll have to remove something that I'm currently doing in order to do that. So because
sorry, no, excuse me, I interrupted.
No, it's just a lot of stuff, and I know that it's not going to be easy. So not yet.
Yeah. So this reminds me of a submitted question, but are you going to use metahumans? And have you tried, because they have an export to Blender option,
Yeah.
which I haven't played with.
Not yet. I mean, I was watching your tutorial for MetaHuman and how you retarget and all that, and it looks so good.
Yeah.
So I'm definitely going to use it because I was always looking at having like digital doubles of myself and the other actors, and seems like the perfect thing for that.
Yeah, and apparently they're going to do a whole headshot style character. You'll be able to feed in a photo and it will Rokovify, the character.
Right.
Okay, so this is Avinash. How did we kind of talked about this, but what was the viral video that was the first video? Like, actually, and the question is there a story to it? So what was that like? Was that like a night? Were you like looking at your phone like, I have a lot of views on, how did that first moment of like, whoa.
My first viral video.
Yeah.
That was interesting. When I was doing my master program in Germany, my flatmate looked exactly like a character from a video game called Subway Surfers.
Okay.
And he even dressed the same way and looked exactly like that. So I asked him if he'd want to shoot a little video with me. And we did shoot that video and I put it up. And that was the first video to cross 1 million views. And that was when I actually sort of saw the possibility of
right.
making some sort of living off of this.
Yeah. And what were you getting your master's in?
It was in engineering.
So not VF. So right, but that because you don't think of this as a career sometimes. Yeah. Man, that must have been kind of a crazy. I just imagine that was kind of a nuts experience of just seeing that tick over 1 million and be like, this is real.
Yeah,
it's incredible.
Yeah, that's when I actually dropped out and started doing this full time.
Yeah. Okay. When that first one happened.
Not immediately, but after a few more.
Yeah. Right. So a question from Papo, who I think asked another question and submitted one, but this is good. And we kind of talked about this, but what is your best advice to develop great storytelling? So like you have an idea, and I think what you talked a little bit about preparation, and that I feel like helps you, right? But yeah, what is, I guess, best advice to develop a great story out of a kernel?
Yeah, it's trying to make a storyboard and see how it feels. Like because on text you get a certain emotion, but the moment you start putting it into pictures and it has a timeline, you'll start to see where it works and where it breaks, and that's kind of a great way to see if it is worth making a film or what changes you can make to make it worthwhile.
Yeah, I think, and you mentioned oh god, I'm forgetting his name somehow, but the Craft-O-Matic from Mike Diva.
Yeah.
I would recommend people go check that out. I don't know where he talks about that. Maybe on a corridor video.
Crew.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So go watch that. But he does it with like action figures, and you were saying that you do it like with yourself, but
whatever you can find,
depending on whatever. What you're trying to do. Just do it first and see if that's gonna be. You're like, because as soon as also, man, so much of it is you get the music, you get those whooshes in there, the sound effects, and you're like, this was a good idea. I like this. This is cool.
It is. Yeah.
Okay, anonymous attendee. Do you still think YouTube is the route, even though it's saturated for content creators? Do you think it's too saturated? Do you think there's still room for more people in there?
Yeah, there is room as long as you're able to make something that stands out enough. That's the real question, because I mean, there are people who have been on the platform for really long, who were popular at one point, who can't sustain it anymore. So there are people going away and there are more people coming in and so on. Yeah. Right. And who knows, maybe people will watch longer or something if you're able to make something that is good enough or something that they would enjoy. So yeah, there's always space.
I feel like there was the idea that shorter YouTube content was better. I think at one point that I definitely thought was true, which I mean might be kind of true, but also I think that don't be afraid to like get deep into,
Yeah,
right? I mean, yeah, and like go, I mean, also, I mean, I think that one of the great things about your videos is it'll be like an amazing video, but then there'll be 4 minutes of breakdown at the end
yeah.
where you're talking to the camera. um, do you see like, is there any more engagement with videos that you do that on? Or I mean, you do them on pretty much every video, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, I do see it because before I did all that, a lot of people did not understand how I was making these videos.
Mm,
I think they thought that there's a huge team and a company or something like that making all of
right.
that. But to see this one guy trying to make something on his own sort of makes them appreciate it a little bit more. And yeah,
Yeah.
that really helps too.
It makes it more personal. I just think it's nice.
True.
People are curious. People, people want to know about you and the Ian Huberts or whoever it is of the world. It's like,
Yeah,
I'm curious about, I want to see Rokov's studio. Like,
yeah,
it's interesting to me.
yeah.
Um, from Kaiser, would you recommend Rokoko suits and software for beginner users to virtual production? Well, okay, that's an interesting question. I have thoughts on that too, but I don't know if you've done any virtual production stuff.
No, not yet. I
Yeah,
haven't. I haven't done very many full CG stuff,
yeah.
because a lot of what I do is live action, and there isn't a very easy way of combining all of that yet. Wait, there
You're
is.
not without a
It's
massive green screen room that's perfectly
yeah,
lit, right? Yeah.
yeah.
I will
But
say,
yes,
oh, go, please. Yes. Okay. Yes.
I would
The answer is
completely
yes.
recommend Rokoko because if you're doing any kind of animation, it makes
Yeah.
everything at least 10 times faster.
Yeah. And I think, I think also something about Rokoko, I would recommend it. um, but I think for virtual production, I think you kind of want to play within the sandbox that you're given, which is that there are limitations to the suit, which is like not something that we shy away from. But the point is that you can work around those limitations and get some amazing stuff. For virtual production, it's not, and I'm just talking now, but it's not going to ever be like the Mandalorian, like they have it. It's good for previs, Kaiser. It's also, but really where the virtual production aspect I think comes in is you do the Rokoko recording and then you retarget it to a character, and then you do the virtual production with the camera, and that can give you good results. But having everything be live, I think is better for previs. So I'll say that, but you should definitely, I recommend Rokoko as well. From Peter, actually from Joel Berg. Joel Berg, here I am from I Am a Superhero. You were kind enough to reply to a question I had about video length, and you suggested keeping things to a minute. So we were just talking about that. Is there a reason that you think that?
A
Or
minute?
that was there? Yeah, I don't know what that is referring to.
Not necessarily. I mean,
Yeah, we
I
were
don't.
just kind of speaking about that too, and that,
Yeah, on YouTube right now they also have YouTube Shorts, which is like 1 minute or under, and so I don't think it's very important how long your video is, as long as it really works. As in
yeah.
the story is flowing, you don't make them wait at any point, doesn't get boring or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's creativity loves constraints, as they say. So sometimes that's nice as well. You give yourself a minute and you say, can
yeah,
I create a full story in a minute? And then, it helps you cut out some of the BS of, I definitely make things and I'm like, I'm the only one who's going to enjoy this. This is not, I can cut this out. They weren't there on that day and they don't know the funny soda story and they aren't going to care. So I can cut that scene or whatever. Um, okay. I'm just going through more. Okay. Have you, um, Keshav, what do you do during your free time? What are some of your hobbies?
um
Or is it all
I
VFX all the time?
No. I'm into sports. I do gymnastics. So a little bit of handstands and stunts and flips and all that stuff.
There's some Spider-Man content deep on your channel.
Yeah.
I've seen it.
I mean, that's actually how I started my channel, to share my gymnastics videos.
Right.
I also play the violin, and so that's the musical side to me.
That makes, I've seen your smart vids or smart gloves video where you were
right.
doing the violin, and I was like, oh
yeah.
Yeah. So you actually play. That's awesome.
Yeah. And yeah, I just like hiking and swimming and diving and all of that adventure stuff, but that's about it, I think.
That's a lot. That's a lot, because you need 23 hours of the day for VFX. So you fit the rest of that in that 60 minutes. So this is a good one from Colin, actually, and we didn't really talk about this. Colin Frederick, can you advise, and this, I'm curious about this answer, can you advise on the best practices for incorporating live action footage with CG, something you do a lot? Do you work in video files? Do you work in image sequences? I assume image, I don't know. Compression. Yeah, maybe talk about, because you integrate a lot of VFX.
Yeah, it's a standard workflow with After Effects. So I bring in the video into After Effects, I 3D track it, then I export the
What does that mean?
image. I 3D track the scene in After Effects.
Oh, 3D. Oh, sorry, 3D track. I thought you said 3D crack. And I was like, no. What is 3D cracking? I've never even heard about it. Okay, 3D track. So you use the 3D, right, the 3D one, because there's 2D tracking too, right?
Right. Yeah, so yeah, it's just the standard pipeline from After Effects. There's an add-on to export camera data from After Effects to Blender. And you can look it up, there are tutorials for it. And that sort of saves you a couple of minutes or like half an hour tracking it in Blender. And that way, yeah.
And green screen, do you do all that in After Effects, I assume?
Yeah, generally, yes. Because I think all of the image manipulation side of it, I try to keep in After Effects and use Blender more like a standard 3D program rather than a compositor or anything like that. For now.
Is there a green screen, something that you used to, is there something you make sure to do? Like, do you light your green screen a certain way? Do you, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot that frustration with green screens sometimes, I think.
Yeah, lighting the screen well is important. Also making sure that there's no wind moving the screen constantly so that it stays the same throughout your shot. Otherwise, you're going to have changing values for the green.
Yeah. Okay, I'm just gonna running through. William had a question. What was your idea of coming up with VFX? It's kind of scanning what's out there and then also keeping a list of ideas as they come up, which I really liked that. There was a question about how much time on average, so this is from David, how much time do you spend cleaning up your mocap? So I assume that's mostly in Rokoko Studio, but also a little bit in Blender maybe?
Yeah, sometimes there are issues around the shoulder region sometimes. I'm not sure.
Yeah, you get that sometimes.
And sometimes there's a twitch or something like that. So most of those are like going and deleting keyframes in a certain part, and then it just interpolates and instantly it's smoother. And sometimes the feed can sort of have issues where it's slipping or something like that. Most of that is cleaned inside Rokoko Studio.
Yeah, and I think we need to be always ever more clear that the suit is intended to be used with Rokoko Studio and the filters. Like that, you can get good raw data, which I get good raw data and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to use these filters maybe or whatever. I'm just focusing on the character's upper body, but it really is intended for all you Rokoko people out there. Use the cleanup filters. They really, it makes a massive difference in terms of quality. It just really does. It's easy.
Yeah, it's one click. I mean, 3 clicks. Yeah.
3 clicks. You got to hit process changes. So you got to add, drift, fix, and hit process changes. But yeah, definitely the suit is intended to be used with those filters to get the really good results that I think you see in people like yours videos. From TVR, are there certain movies and animators you get inspiration from? And then from someone else, Jean-Marc, anyone else on YouTube that you look at and you're like, I mean, I think we all looking at Diva's stuff whenever that comes out, but like, is there anyone else that you think that you follow and you make sure to check out their content?
Yeah, So Crispy Media.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, Nuka Zuka. Obviously, Corridor Digital.
Always gotta.
Ian Hubert. There are so many creators these days.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of them
Yeah.
popular ones.
Landgren. Have you seen Landgren, William? Yeah,
Yes.
young kid.
Yes, he's amazing.
Amazing.
What he does is just incredible.
It's the photogrammetry side of just the Blender community is awesome. If I feel like. Okay, well, so it's been almost an hour, everyone. We can I'm gonna kind of, I think, wrap things up. I think I tried to get through most of the questions. Okay, last one from Bartosz again. You're getting another one. Have you ever tried recording acrobatics? And what advice could you give? And we were actually discussing this before the webinar started a little bit. But have you tried doing handstands in the suit? I mean, yeah, as we said, it works off foot contact, so it gets tricky. Yeah, so I can answer that one. Use treadmill mode because the suit requires foot contact. So that's yeah, that's it. Yeah, there's one from Georgios. Thank you for sharing. Have you thought about making a full virtual production and not a live action VFX? I mean, you have done that a bunch, but a full VFX film. I mean, go check out the King Kong. Yeah, Godzilla. There's a lot that you've done, and right, yeah, you haven't really used Unity or Unreal, so
I am starting to use Unreal. So
okay,
yeah,
MetaHumans is just pulling us all in. Well, man, Rokoko, this was so great. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks, Sam. There's so many questions that I would love to answer. You could send the message on Instagram or something, and I'd be happy to answer.
Yes, and you do. I've seen your comments onto the channel, and you're in there, right, mixing it up with people and looking at. You look at those comments, and yeah, so
yes,
always ask a question, and also, so just as we're leaving, if any of you have not seen Rokoko's channel, which I'm sure most of you have, but if you haven't, go and check it out because it's awesome. And then the best thing is that Rokoko, you always put these behind the scenes things at the end where you really walk through how you did it all. You have behind the scenes footage, and like it's very demystifying. I think I wish more people did it. So that's a thank you from me on that.
Thanks.
Yeah, I don't know. Is there anything coming up that you want to talk about that's exciting that people should stay tuned for? Any keywords?
Yeah. I'm making a video set on the moon.
Oh yeah, right.
So keep an eye out for experiments that I will be posting soon.
And that'll be interesting for anyone we were talking about acrobatics, but getting those motions for low gravity, right? That'll be interesting. And hopefully there'll be some behind the scenes for that. Yeah, I think we're gonna kind of wrap this up. Thank you everyone for joining. So you can always also just as we're ending, go check out our channel. We have lots of tutorials if you're curious about Rokoko. Our Instagram is full of all of if you're using Rokoko products, tag us. We love to repost our community. In addition to Rokoko, and but we will post anything that we see because it's awesome what you guys are creating. If you're curious about the suit, you can always sign up for. We have a one-on-one demo that you can sign up for, that anyone can sign up for, and one of our team will jump on with you. I don't know. Did you do that at all? How did you find out about Rokoko?
I think I saw your videos on YouTube, and then I reached out.
So that was actually, you probably saw things edited. Our CEO is actually a great editor too. So you probably saw his content up on YouTube.
True.
Jacob.
Yeah.
But but yeah, sign up for everyone and or sign up for a demo. And we're also doing public demos now every couple weeks. So you can sign up, and we're just going to have them ongoing, so you can join. And I think we're going to be focusing on Blender and Unreal right now, but we can cover everything. And yeah, that's it. I'm looking at my team here and seeing if I've missed anything. But yeah, can't say it enough. Thank you everyone for joining. This is super cool. We will be doing more of these, and so check out our Instagram and everything for more. I think we're gonna do one with Ian Hubert. We were talking about him in a little bit, hopefully, and we're gonna be doing ones that are focused on the metahumans, and yeah, lots more stuff coming. So I'm gonna leave it there. Rokoko, thank you again.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you everyone for joining, and we'll see you at the next Rokoko talk. Okay.
See you.
See you everyone. Bye.